Hello everyone, my name is Brandy Reeves, my pronouns are she, her, and I am presenting on my research Going Beyond Cultural Competence through discussions on in-groups. I am now a second year PhD student in English at the University of New Mexico. I received my BA in English from Salem College and my MA in English Literature from North Carolina State University. I look at 20th and 21st century multi-ethnic American literature written by women from a critical race, feminist, and post-colonial lens. At UNM, I am an instructor of introductory composition. I am also a graduate assistant for a Mellon-founded program called CNM UNM New Mexico Humanities Now Transfer Program, where we provide ease of access for students from Central New Mexico Community College to transfer into any humanities program at UNM. Before I go into my research, one of the things I wanted to mention about both myself and my approach to this research is that I come from an experience of being the only Black female in both my master's and PhD program. While at NCSU, I was not the only Black person, just the only Black female, at UNM, I am the only Black graduate student in the entire graduate program. It is a very unique perspective, but not one unique to just race and racial dynamics. I feel it necessary to say this so I can show how I not only came to this project, but also explain why it is necessary for instructors, regardless of their background, privileges, advantages, or disadvantages, to work towards promoting an inclusive classroom environment. It is my hope that my research helps in the creation of a truly equitable, accessible classroom, one that challenges through the promotion of anti-racist, anti-sexist, anti-homophobic, and anti-ableist classroom environment. This began as a group project in fall 2021 with the main purpose of developing and creating lesson plans meant to establish a course and classroom environment based on equitability, accessibility, and cultural competence. However, I am going beyond the idea of cultural competence because it is not enough. It looks at diversity from the dominant bias and does not address the social, systemic issues associated with discrimination. It also does not address any implicit biases, values, or ideas a person holds. With the research that I conducted, I came to the conclusion that the instructor must challenge students' previous knowledge, understandings, and ways of knowing. This will help students be, as Bryant Davis states, more active and intentional in challenging any and all implicit biases. I have provided this link as well as two others that discuss moving beyond cultural competence at the end of my transcript and my PowerPoint. Framing the research I did in this project, I am using examples of a class activity I actually created in 2018 at NC State. It is an activity that I still teach at UNM and is now more informed by the recent research I conducted. The combination shows how cultural competence should be used as a stepping stone to move forward and beyond just acknowledging and learning to work with difference. I teach the social science-based assignment, the autoethnography, through a discussion of one's in-group based on Gordon Allport's often considered outdated description in The Formation of In-Groups. I have gotten students to acknowledge difference, learn to understand difference through cultural competency, and finally to actively and intentionally challenge their previous understandings of race, gender, class, sexuality, and ability. This assignment calls for students to research an in-group they belong to, one that they were born into, such as a race or religion, or one that they achieved membership in, like being a student athlete. It's a great opportunity to get students thinking about identity and difference. It also helps promote the examination of students' own privileged or subjugated knowledge. As Cory suggested in his article, What is White Privilege Really? To address privilege means to point to a, quote, built-in advantage separate from one's level of income or effort that is unconsciously enjoyed and consciously perpetuated, end quote, in American life and culture. I apply this to any type of advantage students might enjoy. Yet to address subjugation, I use Alexander and Rhodes' 2014 approach in Flattening Effects, Composition's Multicultural Imperative, and the Problem of Narrative Coherence to combat flattening difference by promoting and accepting the multiple and varied difference of our students. This is meant to challenge the, quote, ignorance of dominant white culture. My discussions, assignments, and activities in the project are meant to get students thinking about experiences and perspectives outside of their own. To teach in groups, over the years, I have developed a strategy to get students to first think about themselves as member of the nationwide first-year college in group. To focus specifically on examples I pulled from my classes at NC State, I had students narrow down that concept by getting them to think about themselves as first-year college students specifically at NC State. This provides a way in to see themselves as both the same as students at their college, but also different from others who are first-year students at a different college or university. I use the idea of concentric circles shown in this slide here and provided visuals via PowerPoint to get students thinking about themselves within in-groups at the university level, such as the in-group of their major, the in-group of their program, their discipline, the college, or the university to which they belong. After that, I developed a multimodal class activity that had students get into groups based on 4 themes from Alport's article: community, norms, prejudices, and conformity. Creating 4 separate Google Docs based on each theme with captions at the top, I shared the document only with members of the group. The activity asked that students describe NC State as an in-group using one-word adjectives, images, memes, GIFs, etc. They had to be anything they felt made NCSU, NCSU. The purpose was to help students map through public spaces to explain how identity is created, shared, and even remembered. This concept is developed from Jessica Enoch and Jordan Jack's research in Remembering Sappho, New Perspectives on Teaching and Writing Women's Rhetorical History. Outside of the theme, students were broadly answering the questions: what made this university unique and different from others? What makes this in-group different from other in-groups? For 10 to 15 minutes, students decided as a group what they felt best described NC State in images, like the one seen here. They were also told to explain how these things make NC State different from other universities when we reconvened as a class to discuss this. One year, I had a group that was assigned to the theme Prejudice, and they used pictures of NC State's bell tower in contrast to UNC Chapel Hill's Moorhead Tower. They positioned NC State's bell tower as bigger and UNC's as smaller, and it was accompanied with the phrase, "Ours is bigger." The purpose of this was to provide the foundation of our class discussion on how creating difference can lead to issues of superiority and inferiority, and how one's membership in an in-group can create out-groups. Once that group project was over, in every discussion at NC State, it was noted that students did not think about other young people their age who were not in college, or older college students just starting their undergraduate career, as people in the same in-group. It was noted that they did not pick any HBCUs, small women's colleges, or 2-year colleges in Raleigh to align or differentiate themselves with, as they did not automatically associate these schools as being part of the same in-group. Uncomfortable questions were then asked as to why students did not see these schools on the same level as NC State, UNC Chapel Hill, or Duke. I also asked about previous biases they may have formed to describe these institutions as different from other schools in Raleigh. As Fuentes et al. Discussed in Rethinking the Course Syllabus, Considerations for Promoting Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, the classroom operates as a microcosm of society at large. To, quote, raise their cultural competence, end quote, to help examine privilege and biases, I use this as an opportunity to examine how this activity mirrored how society develops identity and difference. This led to some very thoughtful final papers in which students discussed their intersectional experience as a member of an in-group of their choice, and points of advantages and disadvantages that they enjoyed or experienced. A great example was in one student's final project on being the child of immigrant parents from Northern Europe. In describing the disadvantages of being the child of immigrants, the student described how, "I may be unable to fully defend how I feel about my nationality or nationalities, but there are some people who are excluded from even getting a chance for defense. I am in a position of privilege where both my parents are white, Northern European immigrants who can speak English. People do not blink so much as an eye when learning about where our family is originally from, other than to say, wow, how cool. In return, an overwhelming feeling of white guilt bubbles up in my subconscious. I have only seen the injustice immigrants of color and their children face, and have never personally experienced such a thing." I believe that this activity and assignment is a great foundation in getting students to actively think about their previous experiences, advantages, and any privileges that they bring to the classroom. Moving beyond and rethinking cultural competence helps students avoid what Lawrence J. Kiermaier describes as the essentializing, commodifying, and appropriating of culture, leading to stereotyping and further disempowerment. To promote a truly equitable, accessible, and culturally competent classroom, my hope in getting students to think specifically about themselves in their in-groups is that they can apply this broadly to other topics, ultimately to promote anti-racism, anti-sexism, anti-homophobia, anti-ableism, and any other form of discrimination.